Think about this. When one decides to protest for a cause, the cause has to be crystal clear. Makes sense, right? The trucker convoy in Canada was clear that they were protesting government mandates on masks and business shutdowns during the pandemic. In the US, when the left organized the March for Our Lives, it was clear they were marching for stricter gun laws. In these examples, the undesirable situation, the action, and the desired outcome were clear. Whether or not it made a regulatory impact is a separate issue. Awareness of the cause is the goal, and the structure to achieve that was present. Undesirable situation, action, desirable outcome. In the case of the ICE protests, or even the No Kings protests, this structure is not present. What is the undesirable situation that sparked the ICE protests? For some, it was reopening the borders. For others, it was having local police handle immigration. For others still, it was demanding more humane immigration enforcement. The situation is not clear. For Alex Pretti, we can only speculate to which camp his beliefs fell into. What is clear is that without proper structure and a defined desired outcome, protesters will never achieve what they want, which is awareness of the problem. In this episode, we'll examine individual failures, state failures, and federal failures, and illustrate how each contributed to the situational failure overall. Let's start at the individual level. Due to the failure in protest leadership to properly define why everyone was protesting, I do not believe there was a unified vision for the ICE protests. Unfortunately, this means that Alex Pretti and Renee Good probably died in vain. That's a tragic situation, to give your life for a cause that is unlikely to make a meaningful difference. Additionally, the news is filled with comments about Alex Pretti having a strong sense of civic justice and simply wanting to help people. I believe that's true. But what is also true is the increased duty of care required when you are a gun owner. Gun ownership is a significant freedom, and the overwhelming majority of gun owners are responsible people. Unfortunately, Alex Pretti does not fall into that category. When you own a gun, your duty of care does not decrease, it increases. Gun owners have a duty to retreat. This is an added responsibility to keep yourself and others safe. What you should not do is run into a riot with a loaded 9mm on your hip. That's the opposite of responsible gun ownership. Now, one could argue that he was protecting the vulnerable population from ICE and that this aligns with the Second Amendment, which states that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Some would interpret this as including protection against government overreach. If that's the argument, I acknowledge it, but he paid for it with his life. With an unclear cause and no defined objective to this protest, the message seems to be lost and his death in vain. Moving to the state level, by positioning cities like Minneapolis, New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago as sanctuary cities that limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities in order to protect undocumented residents from deportation, officials are creating a conflict with federal agencies. The message heard by protesters is that the city and state have their back. This type of messaging from government officials is not fundamentally different from what happened on July 6th, when at the Save America rally, Trump repeated claims of election fraud and said, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. These examples demonstrate conflict and disruption while the federal government is carrying out its duties, whether it's enforcing immigration law or counting election ballots. If you dislike how government officials behaved in one situation, consistency requires you to dislike it in the other as well. I know many of you like Trump, so I'll try to be measured here. The thing people often admire most about him, his direct, no BS, unambiguous style, is also what hurts him in this context. A traditional politician often tries to appeal to both sides and may soften their language to achieve a broader goal. That is not Trump. At times, it appears he intentionally antagonizes those who disagree with him. If you look at past presidents who have deported large numbers of undocumented immigrants, Trump is not even in the top 3. That's wild. Given the rhetoric and media coverage, you would have assumed that he's in the lead by a wide margin, but he's not. This is what I mean when I say his aggressive, no BS stance is hurting him. On a basic level, he has a marketing problem. The left will oppose him regardless, and there will always be media criticism. However, how he speaks about ICE and who he places in leadership roles matters. Adjusting tone and approach can reduce tension and lower the temperature around these issues. There have always been violent protests. Whether you are the Palestinian protests screaming terrible things about Jews, to Bloody Sunday, to the Vietnam War protests that resulted in buildings being burned, to the Stonewall riots that included widespread vandalism, civil unrest is not a new thing. However, as you move up the chain of command, individuals to state officials to federal leaders, the circle of influence expands, and so does your responsibility. Whether you are carrying a gun into a protest, encouraging cities to resist federal authority, or antagonizing political opposition, failures occurred at every single level in this case. Think about that.